Hi, it's Katrina. From making your own to learning how to use one, here are 8 surprising facts about gun silencers. Number 8. Mufflers and silencers. The silencer for guns has been around for a very long time, and it might actually surprise you to learn that the man who first made the silencer for guns actually made the first mufflers for cars. In fact, he also made the first gasoline-powered car in the world. His name was Hiram Percy Maxim, and he was every bit as genius as the inventions that he made. In fact, he actually came from a family of inventors, ones who had made their own impact on history, including his father, who had made the first portable machine gun, and his uncle, who invented special explosives and propellants. Hiram himself was associated with these inventions, even though he had no part in them. But hey, genetics are strong and history is fickle. Maxim graduated from MIT at the young age of 17, proving his genius intellect, which was realized in full in 1899. It was around this time that automobiles were truly coming alive, and there were conflicting concepts as to how to make them last longer. Maxim had the idea to use gasoline to power the car instead of a battery, a concept that modern engineers are now trying to reverse. But his concepts, which were originally for bikes, then used for cars, were picked up by the Columbia Automobile Company, and the first gasoline-powered car was made. With his invention a success, he started to develop more ways to make the automobiles quieter, which eventually led to the official invention of the silencer. Everyone got really nervous, believing that the device could be attached to criminal pistols, but actually it was only able to attach to a sealed breech rifle. In any case, it was prohibited in many states, and Maxim adapted the principle to mufflers, safety valves, air compressors, blowers. The technology could be adapted to many different things. Number 7. The sound of silencers. Because of the name, silencers have a lot of myths surrounding them. One of the biggest ones is that a silencer truly silences a gun, when in fact it doesn't. So what does it do then? It suppresses the noise, muffles it, and makes it less impactful. What does that mean? Well, think of it like this. When a gun fires, there's a literal explosion that comes out of the barrel and shoots forward. In that moment, the explosion causes a very loud sound. According to OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the decibel level that can cause hearing damage is about 140 decibels, though it can be lower and still be impactful depending on what's being used. For most guns, they range from 140 to 160, if not higher. So when you put a silencer on a gun, it actually brings down the noise level. How much? It depends on the gun. Most of them bring the noise level down 20 points, but some can do even more. In fact, there are some people who specialize in making silencers that truly bring the noise level down, regardless of the gun that's being used. However, no matter how much it's suppressed, it'll never be absolutely silent. After all, the explosion has to happen. So unlike the movie and TV industry, gun sellers don't promote silencers as silencers. They call them suppressors, which is actually a far more accurate name. Number 6. Silencers are made for all types of guns. In most movies, everyone has a handgun, especially if it's an action movie with hitmen. It could be a big one, a small one, but it's a handgun. Contrary to popular belief, they can be used for most basic guns. What I mean is models like handguns, shotguns, machine guns, rifles, sniper rifles, and more. On the surface, you might think it odd that something as loud and powerful as a shotgun would need a silencer. Those things are made to impress. But not unlike handguns, there are needs out there for weapons that can emit as little sound as possible in order to help get the job done and protect the shooter. The military and armed forces are a good example of this. When they are breaching a house or pursuing an enemy or taking out a target from long range, the last thing they need is to draw more attention to themselves. Not everyone is trying to be as loud as possible. So they use silencers on their weapons to muffle the sound so that they can do their job more easily. Not to mention, in combat situations with bullets flying around and loud noises being made, the less noise you have to shout over, the easier it is for your men to hear your orders. Now, custom weapons, special orders, and certain other types of guns don't have an option for a silencer on hand, barring another custom order. But the standard weapons of the industry do have the option. Number 5. Congress debated lifting restrictions on silencers. Silencers are an incredibly useful tool for a gun if used properly, but not unlike guns themselves, they can be abused. At present, there are restrictions on who can get a silencer and how you go about getting one. However, in 2017, Congress tried to pass a bill that would allow all restrictions on silencers to be lifted, thus allowing just about anyone to get their hands on one if they wanted to. Many people on both sides have numerous opinions on this matter, including Jason Schaubel, who owns Silencers Co. in Utah. Suppressors are really about taking shooting noise below 140 decibels, which is the OSHA hearing safe level, Schaubel says. Many suppressors end up around 130 or 120 decibels, so around the volume of a car door slamming. Guns firing can be very harmful to the ears, and thus silencers or suppressors are prized as they can limit the noise emitted by a firing gun. It's for this reason that some people are okay with the bill passing, as it's helping people maintain their hearing while still using guns for hunting or for sport. However, there are those who see the dark side of this coin, mainly that criminals, or just about anyone with bad intent, could get these silencers and then use them to carry out dark deeds without drawing too much attention to themselves. People could easily use them for nefarious purposes, says Jack Rinchich, president of the National Association of Chiefs of Police. People don't want to draw attention with a muzzle flash or a blast. However, they are legal almost everywhere in the US, but they are very difficult to buy, in theory. Number 4. Criminals don't use silencers that much. If you were to believe only television shows and movies, then you would likely think that suppressors are on the ends of every single gun in the United States, if not the world. But the fact of the matter is, that's actually not true. It is true that there have been crimes committed with silencers, including some rather high-profile crimes. However, on average, the typical criminal usually won't waste time with a silencer for numerous reasons. First off, a silencer is a literal extension of a gun, and thus it adds to its size when attached. Knox Williams, president of the American Suppressor Association, says that the majority of firearms used in crimes are small, concealable handguns. Folks want to be able to put something in a pocket or hide it in a waistband. When you add a suppressor to that, you're generally adding 6 to 8 inches to the length of a gun. The other issue is that for a truly good silencer, you need to be willing to pay for it. It's a $1,000 thing to add to another expensive thing, which just isn't really worth it. Again, every case is different, but studies have shown that few criminals actually take the time to get silencers when speed and precision can be just as effective a method of getting things done. It should be noted, though, that the use of suppressors is growing in general. More and more people are using them, good and bad. Number 3. 42 states have approved silencers. Given their ability and their usefulness for various acts, it's logical that there are restrictions and rules to owning a suppressor. However, you might be surprised to know that in the United States, over 4/5 of the country allows people to own silencers without issue. They still have to follow the restrictions, but owning them isn't a problem for most. Furthermore, 40 of the 42 states will allow hunters to use suppressors, which makes many rangers worried about poachers. If you're curious, states that don't allow suppressors include California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. In 1932, there were bans on suppressors because of the fear of illegal poaching during the Great Depression. Now they are regulated by a 1934 law called the National Firearms Act. The NFA includes silencers among other exotic firearms and require a special tax. Number 2. How to get a silencer. One of the reasons why silencers aren't as popular as many people think is because of the process that it takes to get one. Outside of just the money costs, which at times are a minimum of $500 to $600, depending on the one you're getting, there's a long process to get one. First, you need to go to a reputable dealer, such as Silencer Co. in Utah. You'll need to pick out the silencer you want, then depending on the dealer, you'll either have to pay for it up front or leave a deposit. Then you have to fill out the paperwork, a lot of it, much of which is detailing your life so you can show that you are capable of using the silencer for its intended purpose. Added to that, you'll need to submit certain documents to the government, including fingerprints, passport, you name it. After all that is done, you send the paperwork to both the government and your local law enforcement officials. Then you have to wait, usually for a long time. The ATF will be taking its time with every single application, and because of that, you may not get your silencer for some time. Hence why people would rather just go with the gun they have and wear ear protection than waste time and money on a silencer. Number 1. Business is booming, for now. Despite all the restrictions and costs of silencers, the desire for them is actually growing. According to Silencer Co., from 2014 on, their business has profited with a 600% increase in sales. In 2016 alone, they sold over 100,000 suppressors. However, given the political climate in the United States, it will be interesting to see how things progress. Due to recent events, Americans are becoming more wary of guns, but with over 300 million guns in the US alone, there's going to be people who want silencers, and there will be people who want to sell them. A lot of people are also learning how to make their own. If you're thinking about doing this, make sure to be on the right side of the law and be extra careful. Thanks for watching! Did you learn something new about silencers? Can you believe some of these facts? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye!